Some writers can break your heart with just a single sentence. They see life not as this big, sweeping novel, but as a string of tiny, intense moments, moments that really define who we are. Well, today, we're talking about one of the absolute masters of this, the modernist pioneer, Katherine Mansfield.
So, how do you even begin to understand a style that was so revolutionary? Well, I think the best way is to just dive right in, to step into one of the worlds she created. We're going to start with one of her most famous and, frankly, most heartbreaking stories, Miss Brill, and get to know the quiet, fragile life of its main character.
So we meet Miss Brill on this lovely Sunday afternoon, and the first thing she does is take her beloved fur necklet out of its box. Now, for her, this isn't just a piece of clothing. No way. It's like a living companion. She calls it a little rogue, someone she shares this secret life with. And this simple act, this little ritual, it kicks off her favorite part of the entire week.
Every single Sunday, it's this same routine. She sits on her special bench in the public gardens, and she just watches the world unfold. It's like her own personal theater. You've got the band playing, kids laughing, couples strolling by, and she's just soaking it all in. She even listens in on conversations. She's become an expert at feeling like she's a part of other people's lives, even if it's just for a little while. And then, on this particular Sunday, something clicks. She has this huge realization, this epiphany. The whole scene, it suddenly feels like a play. The sky is the backdrop, the people are all actors on a stage, and the biggest thing, she realizes she's not just sitting in the audience watching. No, she has a part to play too. And this thought, it just fills her with this incredible, thrilling sense of connection. For maybe the first time, she feels like she actually belongs.
So she's sitting there, just basking in this warm, wonderful feeling of belonging. And then this young, glamorous couple, the hero and heroine of her little play, they come and sit right next to her, and in a single, brutal instant, their cruel, careless words just completely shatter her world. Everything comes crashing down. Her walk home is just silent. She doesn't even stop for her usual treat, that little slice of honey cake she gets every week. She just goes straight to what she calls her little dark room, like a cupboard, and she puts the fur back in its box. And as she closes the lid, she thinks she hears something crying. And of course, we're left with this heartbreaking question. Is it the fur? Or is it Miss Brill? So you've got this story with almost no plot, right? But the emotional punch, man, it just stays with you. So who could write something like that? Who is the mind behind this kind of quiet devastation? Well, that brings us to the revolutionary storyteller herself, Katherine Mansfield. So Katherine Mansfield was born in New Zealand, but she moved to London and quickly became a huge figure in modernism. You have to remember, this was a movement. She, along with other giants like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, was part of this rebellion. They were all dead set on breaking away from the old, stuffy rules of how you were supposed to tell a story. And her signature technique? It's often called the slice of life. Think about it. She wasn't interested in these huge, epic adventures or really complicated plots. Not at all. Instead, she zeroed in on capturing one single fleeting moment. It's almost like a photograph that, if you look at it long enough, reveals a person's entire inner world.
And this chart really lays it out perfectly. Look, traditional plots are all about a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's about what happens. But for Mansfield, it was all about what it feels like. She completely ditched the grand sweeping events. Instead, she focused everything on that one small moment of realization, that little epiphany that changes absolutely everything on the inside.
Okay, but why? Why write this way? I mean, a style this unique, this powerful, it doesn't just come out of thin air. For Katherine Mansfield, her art was absolutely forged in the fire of her own life, a life full of pain and urgency. And I mean, just look at this timeline. Her life was so incredibly short, she died at just 34. But it was packed with rebellion, ambition, and so much tragedy. She was also always a bit of an outsider, a colonial from New Zealand trying to make it in London. And you can feel that sense of alienation in almost everything she wrote. One of the biggest turning points, though, was the death of her beloved younger brother in World War I. This absolutely broke her. It left her with this profound sense of guilt and nostalgia, and she felt what she called a sacred debt to write down all the memories they shared growing up in New Zealand. This is really when her writing took a sharp turn inward, focusing on memory and home.
On top of all that, Mansfield had a long, brutal battle with tuberculosis. Think about what that does to you. Knowing your time is limited, it's like a ticking clock in the back of your mind. It gave her this urgent, intense appreciation for life's smallest, most fleeting moments, both the beautiful and the painful ones. And her illness made her hyper-aware of how fragile our bodies are, a theme you see again and again in her stories. So when you have a style this revolutionary, you're going to make some waves. And Mansfield definitely did. She wasn't writing in a vacuum. She was right in the thick of the modernist movement, which put her in direct conversation and often intense competition with some of the biggest literary names of the day.
And you can't talk about Mansfield without talking about Virginia Woolf. Their relationship is the stuff of literary legend. I mean, here you have two of the most innovative writers of the century, both exploring these incredible, deep themes of female consciousness. And their relationship, oh, it was a fascinating mess of admiration, rivalry, and just straight-up jealousy.
Honestly, nothing sums up their complicated dynamic better than this one quote. This is from Virginia Woolf's own diary, talking about Mansfield's writing. "The only writing I have ever been jealous of." Wow. That says it all, doesn't it? Even her greatest rival, a literary giant in her own right, couldn't deny the raw, unbelievable power of Mansfield's talent.
All right, so that was then. It's been over a century. Why should we still be reading Katherine Mansfield today? What's the big deal? Well, the truth is, her influence is absolutely everywhere, whether you realize it or not. Her legacy is just huge. Before Mansfield, the short story was mostly about plot, about what happens next. She came along and turned it into a kind of psychological microscope, a tool for exploring the deepest parts of a person's mind. And crucially, more than almost anyone else at the time, she gave a powerful voice to the complex, hidden inner lives of women, their dreams, their frustrations, all of their quiet little rebellions.
When you boil it all down, Katherine Mansfield's work is this powerful, urgent reminder to just pay attention. It all comes back to Miss Brill in the park, doesn't it? She shows us that life's biggest, most profound truths aren't found in some big, dramatic explosion. Nope. They're found in a quiet moment of observation, a careless comment, or even just a shared glance.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, a question for all of us. In our own busy lives, with our phones and our routines and all our distractions, how often do we miss the play that's happening all around us? How often are we like that young couple on the bench, just completely oblivious to the quiet, fragile, and totally unique worlds of the people sitting right beside us?